Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our Mom Sense and Dad Sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton.
It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. When we think back to our fondest memories, I'm sure so many of us remember our days in college. And if you're parents with young kids and you're already pushing your alma mater, this episode is for you. This is about how we can prepare our children of all ages to navigate higher education and what their purpose is in this world. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Sara Harberson, and she is fondly known as America's College Counselor. She is the former Associate Dean at many top institutions, and she's made it her mission to demystify the college application process and empower students and parents alike. She is the acclaimed founder and CEO of Application Nation, a groundbreaking consulting program, and the critically acclaimed book Soundbite, where she unpacks how to present an authentic, standout college application, even in the most competitive of environments. We'll explore how Sara navigated the industry, hear her take on pressing issues, and gain expert advice on what steps families can take from toddlerhood to the teenage years to prepare our kids for college. Sara, welcome to That's Total Mom Sense.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. I just can't wait to get into your story and your soundbite. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us a bit about your childhood.
Oh my gosh. Well, I grew up in New Jersey, but the part of New Jersey that nobody knows about in southern New Jersey, in a place called Vineland. And it's actually, it's a rural community, but also incredibly diverse. I went to a very large public high school. Not many people go to college where I'm from, so that absolutely influenced what I do now. And how we navigate the college process for all high school students. But my parents worked a lot. Mm-hmm. I was what you would call a latchkey kid. I don't know. Do they still use that term?
Yeah, of course. I know exactly what you're talking about. And the millennials who are tuning in do too.
Yeah. So I felt like I was the only one who was a latchkey kid. But yeah. I can remember as early as first grade being completely on my own in the morning. And when I got home in the afternoon from school, I made my own lunch. I had to navigate how to get to school and how to come home and what to do. And I think that really made a big impact on me.
Yes.
It made me very independent, absolutely. But also I had to be a good observer of people because I was very young, but almost having to be an adult or be around adults. And I can remember watching people, how they acted all the time, what they said. And it was a way for me to figure out who I could trust and who I couldn't. But it's interesting because I've always loved watching people. And I've always been curious about their story I was the kid who, we were at the grocery store and I was staring at the family behind us in the line at the grocery store. Or if we went out to dinner, I was paying attention to the table next to us, trying to figure out everyone's background. So it's only fitting that for a living now, I help students talk about their background and share their story, because most students don't realize how helpful that can be in the admissions process.
Yes.
I wish I had done a better job of talking about my background and story when I applied to college. So now I need to make sure that I do that for other students.
I love that. And I heard in a talk that you gave that 25% of your school dropped out of high school and less than 20% applied to college.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning.
Navigate this process because it's hard. And for those, who are the first to go to college in their families, even more so.
Yeah. I was fortunate in that both my parents had graduated college. So I really felt like I almost had a leg up within my high school. But my guidance counselor barely knew me.
Yeah.
And she didn't know the colleges on my list.
Oh, wow.
Because if a student had, went to my high school and they were going to a four-year college, they were probably going to like a Rutgers or University of Delaware, something like that. Sometimes Penn State, but not small liberal arts colleges. So I really had to learn how to apply to college on my own.
Yes.
And gosh, I'd be afraid to look at my college essay or my college application now. But still to this day, how many decades later, we really haven't seen dramatic improvements in how we help students through this admissions process.
Yes.
And frankly, colleges aren't as transparent as we need them to be about the admissions process.
100%. So Gen Z tech founder and UN speaker Sinead Bovell said, "We need to stop asking our kids what they want to be when they grow up. These jobs might not exist anymore thanks to AI. And number two, we need to focus on the skills they want to acquire. That's what actually sustains you in life, in your career, what have you." So what are your unique skills that you use to this day? And how do you kind of encourage the students who work with you to tap into that?
Yeah, that quote resonates because most families that are in Application Nation and my online college counseling community, they really are focused on what major should my child list on their application that's going to set them up for life. And
so undecided is like a big no-no still?
A big no-no. And also everybody wants business or computer science or engineering. Pre-med is still popular, but I would say business and computer science are absolutely the most popular majors right now. And I worry about that type of student, that if that is the focus of your undergraduate experience and you get out and you realize that's not what you want to do, you don't have as much flexibility to do other things. So I'm still, to this day, a big fan of liberal arts programs, whether it's at a bigger university or a small liberal arts college like the school that I went to. But it's a hard sell for families because they're looking at the price tag of college and they want to know that their child is going to be set for life. But we know just all the people that are around us, our colleagues, our friends, it's very common to change jobs, change careers, multiple times in a lifetime. But I guess my unique skill, because I can't convince every family that it's okay to be a liberal arts major, my unique skill, it's such a beautiful thing. It's beautiful when I see it come to life and the student actually listens. But pointing something out to a student that I see in them that they haven't seen in themselves just yet. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I think our society focuses so much on, well, you're a good math student or you're a good writer. There's so many other things that we can be good at. If you can get a high school student to start to open up to you, it's really easy to say, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
This
Have
is
you
the
thought
thing.
about this? So I like to say that my unique skill is seeing something in them that they haven't seen yet in themselves. Because I wish I had an adult who pointed something out to me when I was their age.
Yeah.
I think I would have figured out my soundbite a lot
Yes.
sooner in life. We can't forget to point things out to them that they're really good at.
Yes.
Because they need every bit of confidence to get through high school, to get through this process. And adults are such an important vehicle
Right.
to get them to where they can, ultimately reach all their goals. Or even dreams that they never even thought they would actually have.
Right. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And, reading your book, Soundbite, I wanted to just hear your soundbite to start, because I feel like it's so important that we tackle that imposter syndrome head on. Adults do this a lot.
Yeah. So the good thing about Soundbite is, as a human being, it should evolve over time as you become more self-aware and you do different things in your life. But right now, my soundbite is, I'm America's college counselor and the founder of Application Nation and the author of Soundbite. Short and sweet. And those are my three big, roles. And we focus so much in Soundbite in the book, but also when I'm working with students, focus on describing yourself with nouns and verbs instead of adjectives and adverbs, because they're just filler,
Right.
I could say I'm hardworking, but no, I'd rather call myself a hustler. It's like, give yourself a title, because that is the visual of that is so much more individualized and it's powerful. And you should be giving yourself this soundbite, and you should, as long as you are living it.
Yes.
And you're not being somebody else and you're being very authentic, then you should be really proud of it. Especially as a woman, I would say. I think there are so many times in our lives as young women, as girls, and even as professional women where you can easily, or I felt like I could easily just get boxed in. Oh, she's just the hard worker. I don't want to just be the hard worker.
Yeah.
I want to define myself in ways that nobody else is defining them. And that's how you make an impact in this world.
Yes.
That's how you do something that improves the lives of others around you.
Right. Now, I wanted to speak about the origin story of Soundbite because it came from some mom guilt.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah. It's funny because I was a latchkey kid. I felt like I sometimes was raising myself, but I'm an incredibly overprotective mother of three. But I had worked in college admissions on the university and college side for the first half of my career. My goal was to become a dean of admissions. I finally reached that goal and realized this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And after 2 kids, I took a break. And had a third child on that work break. And I love my kids so much. I would do anything for them, but I was really unhappy. I felt like I needed to work and I needed to feel fulfilled as a woman.
Right.
And made the hard decision to go back to work when my third child was about a year old. And so at that time, I had a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And I really wanted to stay in the industry of college admissions, but I felt like I'd only seen college admissions from the college side of the process. I really wanted to work directly with high school students within a high school environment. Right. So I took a job about an hour and 20 minutes from my house. If I got lucky, it was an hour and 20, sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes an hour and 15, but it was a pretty long commute.
Wow.
And it was a high school, so I had to be there by like 7:30 in the morning.
Gosh. Wow.
So I felt just so much mom guilt. But at the same time, I felt alive again to be working. And I worked at an all-girls high school outside of Philadelphia, a high school that I used to read applications from.
Okay.
So when I was at the University of Pennsylvania, I covered the Philadelphia suburbs, and that was one of my high schools. I read all the applications from this school, and it was my favorite high school.
Yes.
I just thought the girls were so cool.
Right.
And I wished I was them at that age. And so I had this incredible professional awakening working with these girls. I felt so inspired. But then I'd have to drive home and I felt so bad, or I had to drive to work. And so I started thinking about, all right, what's my next step? I'm now inspired by these girls. And on these long car rides there and back, I would say, these girls are amazing, but they don't know how to present themselves or present themselves in the application. What can I do? And I started coming up with this concept. I didn't call it Soundbite, but I started coming up with this idea of, what is your identity? And then one day I was driving home listening to, of all people, Howard Stern.
Okay.
I can't even remember the person he was interviewing. It was some type of performer who's been around for decades. And Howard asked him, like, why are you still, how can you still be so successful after 40 years or however long it is? And the performer said something very short and sweet, but powerful. And Howard said, "That's your soundbite."
Oh, wow.
And I went, that's the name of
That's
my book.
the name of the book. Oh my goodness.
And
I love
that's
it.
how young girls, young men, adults, we need to be thinking about, what is our soundbite right now?
Yes.
Because we don't have that much time when we meet someone important or influential. We got it.
Right.
Get it out.
Yes.
Say who we are. And then if they ask questions, we can back it up.
Yes. But you don't have to explain away. And okay. So we have parents who are tuning in with kids of all ages. And I think even those with toddlers, I mean, I have twins who are 7 and a 6-year-old, I'm already thinking about what's on the horizon, and it's important to have those practical strategies. And it's like, are we doing a Habitat for Humanity as a family, or like, what's our thing? And yes, it might make it to the college essay, but you never know. And so what can we do when we have the younger kids, elementary kids, and then our high schoolers, that it's like, this really made an impact on their life, and it made it to the college essay.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like I became such a better admissions officer, dean of admissions, college counselor when I became a mom.
Yeah.
So that's given me such a layer that shapes the advice that I give. And I would say for parents of young kids, this is more just, parent-to-parent advice. Not to compare your own kids to each other at a young age.
Yeah.
And not to compare your kids to other parents' children. I have to keep myself in check constantly. Like, I'm focused on each individual child and what's best for them. So that's really important. When you have kids that are starting to go to school, or even in middle school, like my youngest, I think the most important thing is not to box them in. I can remember my parents at a very young age saying to me, you can either be a lawyer or a doctor. Those are your options. And I thought, well, I'm not good at science. So I guess I'm going to go to law school.
Free law it is,
and ultimately, I went to law school and was miserable,
right,
and dropped out and had all of this debt that I had to pay back even though I didn't even want to become a lawyer. So we can't box our kids in ever, but especially not when they are still evolving and figuring out what they're good at. So in elementary and middle school, and frankly, sometimes even in the early years of high school, it's really important to encourage our kids to explore a lot of things. And that goes for their schoolwork, their subjects. Electives are really important in high school, but they're really important even in middle school if your child's school offers them to try out yearbook and music and orchestra and stage crew and theater and everything and anything that they are curious about.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. Something that we tell our kids, and, I immigrated here and even my husband has immigrant parents.
Yeah.
So, it was always the mindset of straight A's. So still love straight A's, but I also want the other A's. And by that, I mean it's academics, athletics, and the arts.
Yes. Yeah. Huge fan
So
of
important.
sports for young people.
Yes.
Keeps them active,
Right.
keeps them
off the screens.
off the screens, less video games, less everything.
Yeah.
That you need to kind of,
stuff you want to keep them away from when they're older.
Yeah. Team sports I'm a huge fan of that. And also the arts.
Yes.
Absolutely essential to be exposed to that, to test it out, even if you don't think you are an artist in any way. That's the thing. I wasn't good at art growing up, fine arts. I don't have a singing voice. So theater was always tough because my high school did musical theater and I never had a big part. But the arts are much more expansive than a lot of families think.
Yeah.
So I like to call myself a creative.
Yes. Same.
Because not only do I write for a living and speak for a living, but I am creating businesses. I'm creating offshoots of businesses.
Right.
And I never want to feel like I'm stuck in a 9-to-5 job. So being a creative means a lot of things in 2024, 2025, 2020, moving forward.
Onwards. Yes. It's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Which is really, really brilliant.
I tell my kids this almost daily, and that is, I don't want you to peak in high school.
That's awesome. It's so great for the nerdy little Kanika who didn't. I'm like, thank goodness, hello 30s. They were amazing. And I'm so glad for that.
Yeah. So that's something that is really hard to get through to them because being popular,
right,
following the crowd, doing what everybody else is doing, it's just, that is the norm. So, and peaking in high school, my goodness, there's so much more to your life beyond those 4 years of high school.
Yeah.
Don't peak in high school.
That's brilliant.
That is sometimes hard for parents. And my mom's an immigrant, so I understand that immigrant approach to parenting. That's really hard for a lot of families, first-generation Americans, because peaking in high school often can translate, at least if you peak academically in high school, will translate, you're going to get into a highly selective college.
Yeah, it's true. And I want to kind of hone in on, the community I come from, South Asians, who I know you've worked with many. And I've really, really enjoyed your talk at the Council General of India that was hosted by Anu Sehgal of the Culture Tree and Sheila Lirio Marcello of Ojai. I loved it, so I'm going to link that in the show notes. But you spoke to how you grew up with two South Asian friends, Renu and Raj.
That's right.
So I definitely want you to share a little bit about their story.
There's a lot of pressure. And I felt it too. It's interesting. My mom is an immigrant. My dad was born in the U.S., but I was raised Jewish, and success, education, the best, you have to go to the best schools. In that speech, I talked about these two friends of mine. We played tennis together. We were all nerds.
Yeah.
And I told the story really about Raj because I lost touch with him after we graduated, and I couldn't even remember where he went to college. And when I was preparing for that speech, I started to dig around and I tried to find him, and I found we connected after that speech.
Wow.
Even more. But he had gone to a college that not a lot of people had heard of, and did incredibly well there, and has worked for the State Department all over the world as a expert in, security and international relations and global affairs. And he's worked in India and Pakistan. He's worked everywhere. It's just the coolest story. And it just goes to show you two things. It doesn't matter where you go to high school.
Yes. Yeah.
That's number one. And it doesn't really matter where you go to college.
Right.
It's what you do with that education.
Yes.
That is the most important thing. And I remember when I got to college, I went to a small liberal arts college, great school, but no one had heard of it it's called Hamilton College. It is, a school of about 1,700 students in central northern New York, and just a great education.
Oh.
My husband and I met at Hamilton.
Oh.
He was a boarding school guy.
Okay.
Super, super, super smart. But we tell our kids every day we ended up at the same place. And mom graduated at the top of her class,
right,
and dad somewhere in the middle. So again, it doesn't matter what high school you go to, and it really doesn't matter what college you go to. It's what you do with that education.
Right.
Big fan of liberal arts programs because it teaches you how to speak, how to write, and how to think critically, so that no matter what career you do, wherever you end up, you are going to be successful.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. And being in a smaller environment, you really have the room to grow and thrive. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I have a question about being in the, hyper competitive environments. My sister went to a magnet school growing up, Blair in Montgomery County, in Maryland.
Yes.
And I feel like she loved it, but it was also so competitive. I remember when she got her first C, and it was like just totally heart shattering, like for someone who's an inherent overachiever. And then you're all applying to that same subset of schools. Yeah. How do you actually differentiate yourself? Because you might be average, and you're not all the way at the top.
Yeah. High school is a big decision for a lot of families. And if you live in a community with options, it could be the magnet high school, it could be a private school, it could be a boarding school, it could be religiously affiliated school, or your regular traditional public high school. Families have options, and the online high schools are.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's a whole other phenomenon.
That's a whole other part of the industry that has exploded over especially the last 10 years. It used to be homeschool was so unusual, but the online school option has almost replaced that. But ultimately, just like a college choice, you have to go with the right environment for that student. Yeah. When I became the dean of admissions at Franklin and Marshall College, a small liberal arts college.
I know it well. I have friends who went there.
Great place. I was the first female dean of admissions there ever. I was also the youngest dean of admissions in the country. Wow. So that's when things started to shift. But frankly, going into that role, I was on an island. I didn't have any female mentors. So diversity, it means a lot of things in college admissions these days, but high school is one of them. Sometimes your local public high school can ultimately get you to where you want to be.
Yes, yes.
In a straighter line. There's nothing wrong with the curve, the curving path or the curved road, and the mountains that you have to climb up and down. But sometimes that can be the right fit for a lot of students. And, if you have great college counseling within the high school, or you have access to great college counseling outside of your high school, you can have unbelievable results in the admissions process. And you shouldn't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for good college counseling.
Right.
And because my family could never afford a private college counselor, I've always felt it was extremely important to have a weekly blog, have tons of free resources on my website, do Instagram Lives, do Facebook Lives, do speeches and presentations at high schools, to do counselor workshops or teacher workshops on how to write letters of recommendation. There are real experts out there who are sharing great advice that families can access at this point, even if they're not able to get college counseling within their child's bricks and mortar high school.
Yes, I know. And I love the work you do. I love all your lives. And I mean, I don't even have candidates for college, but I know all about early action and early decision and what's going on. And it's great. Just the information, it just makes you feel so empowered. So I really, really love that. So, I love how the rubric is changing and diversity is really integrated into the college application process, especially from, the admission side. And you are living proof of that. They diversified their team knowing that we needed a young female leader like you to share her perspective, which is really, really amazing. So tell us about, those legacy students, though. And, with the Varsity Blues scandal, there is a degree of nepotism in all industries, but in this one too.
Yeah. So I've been in the industry on the college, high school, and then the private side now for 25 years. First 20 years of my career, the college admissions process changed very little.
Ugh.
And then when the admissions scandal broke, absolutely no surprise to me, tip of the iceberg. But when it broke and the public found out what was going on behind closed doors, that changed everything. That was 5 years ago. And what we're seeing since that scandal broke, major policy changes in colleges' admissions policies and approaches. And things are changing every single year. And it's very hard for a family to know what the policy is because it's changing so much. And we're also seeing that college admissions is now something that everybody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 20 years of my career, you would be lucky if you saw an article buried down all the way at the back of the newspaper. Now it's something that, it's in the news every single day.
Yeah.
That can be a good thing because I think, the fact that the public is talking about it is a way for things to change for the better for students. But the only way for things to really change would be for colleges to be transparent about the college admissions process.
So true.
Legacy is getting a lot of attention the last couple of years. There are some colleges that have eliminated the legacy preference in the admissions process, which basically means if an applicant, a student's parent, sometimes grandparent, sometimes family member went to that college, it could give them a push, an advantage in the admissions process. So there are some colleges that have eliminated legacy admissions completely. There are some states that have eliminated legacy admissions, but still the majority of colleges still have it to some extent. It is not as powerful as it once was.
Yeah.
And I could even see that, when I was working at Penn for my first 10 years of my career, when I first started, it felt like every legacy applicant got admitted. It wasn't like that, but it felt like that.
Yeah.
And by the end of my 10-year career at Penn, everything was getting tougher and tougher. And that was because the applicant pool was growing and Penn was able to become more selective in the end.
Yeah.
So legacy admissions is not as powerful as it once was. Connections are tricky these days. Whenever a family comes to me and they say, we know so-and-so on the board at Princeton or this place or that place, I say, you're talking to the wrong person.
Right.
I don't get involved in that at all. And maybe it's because I'm, my dad's daughter, and he was so big on you earn your way.
Yeah.
And if it means sometimes that you don't get what you want because someone else gets it and they didn't deserve it, that's life. That's how you learn. That's how you pivot, and that's how you grow. So connections are tricky these days. Most admissions officers are not privileged Americans.
Right.
Most admissions officers did not live a privileged life. And so there is a part of them, even though they don't have all the power, the dean or the vice, president of enrollment has the power usually, or the president or the board of trustees has the ultimate power. But those admissions officers, they, in the end, they want the right kids to get admitted.
Right. And the landscape has changed so much, and it's ever evolving. Just for some stats, so 8.9 million female students enrolled in college in 2021 compared to 6.5 million male students. So then we have that, and then AI has completely upturned our industry. So what is your finger on the pulse on now? Because it's ever evolving.
Almost every college in the United States has more female identifying applicants than male identifying applicants. So there is a, clear, gap going on.
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, that's great for the girls, right?
Right.
And not so good for the guys, but you can flip it around and say, wow.
It's not good either way. You need it balanced.
Yeah. And frankly, most prospective students, they want to go to a college where there is more balance, a 50-50 split, but that's hard to find. So what ends up happening, it's actually almost always harder for girls to get into a college than it is for the guys or the male identifying students applying.
The ratios,
Yeah. So that makes it tough. But why are we seeing more females going to college than male identifying students? It has to do with a couple things. There are more females than males. And also females are more likely to take a college prep curriculum in high school than male students. Females are more likely to do well in high school, at least in terms of their grades in their classes.
Yeah.
Maybe, standardized testing, they still are behind the boys on standardized test scores, but that's part of the reason. And more male identifying students talk about, well, I don't need a college education for what I want to do. So there are a couple reasons for that.
And in your book, you talk about 4 years being reduced to 4 minutes. That's all you have as your hook to be like, okay, I have impressed this person reading my app. And I know I'm encouraging all my listeners to go get the book because that's where you get, the full picture. But just as a small snippet, like what can kids do to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to use as my hook?
Yeah, when I first started at Penn, it took me about 25 minutes to read an application, and that was tough to do. And now most elite colleges are reading an application in less than 5 minutes. Penn admitted a couple years ago that it was actually 4 minutes that they read an application.
Wow. I mean, we have short form content, so I think all of our attention span is to blame for that.
So they read through that application very quickly. I say to all of my students in Application Nation, on your college list, every college you apply to, you should be objectively competitive for that college.
Yes.
The reason is your essays are not going to get the attention that they deserve, or your extracurriculars or your letters of recommendation, if your grades aren't objectively competitive, your curriculum isn't objectively competitive, and your test scores, if they're required or you're reporting them, are not objectively competitive for that college. The admissions officer looks at that objective information very quickly, seconds, like 1 second.
Yeah.
And that dictates how much time they invest in that application. They have to read the whole application, but for a student who is objectively competitive, they know they have to be more careful and take their time and be more thoughtful, because that student has a chance.
Very crystal clear about what they want.
Yeah.
Is there a sweet spot number of how many schools are safety, target, reach, and if that's the benchmarks that you use?
So I am seeing a cross-section of the applicant pool. We have about 1,000 families in each senior class in Application Nation. They're applying to all different types of colleges, all over the country, all over the world.
Yeah.
So we are seeing it from, a national perspective rather than just the high school. It's really important that students not apply to too many colleges, because there are a lot more essays to write than when you and I apply to college.
Right.
So I say 9 to 12 colleges, and there should be an equal number of reach colleges, target colleges, and likely colleges on the list.
Yes.
If you just apply to reach colleges, all 8 Ivy League schools or Ivy type schools, that's going to turn into about 50 to 60 essays, and your chances of admission are going to go down because you haven't diversified your college list.
Yeah. It's like a portfolio. That's great. What was a mom sense moment you had where you trusted your intuition? And I know we learn so much from our kids, and I feel like, I love that you said that becoming a mother really changed how you show up as America's college counselor. So share a mom sense moment with us.
I see myself as a working mom. That's how I feel good about myself, and as a mom and as a professional. My mom sense moment was when I started Application Nation. I had so many doubters say, you are never going to get families to sign up for this because they don't want to share. They're not going to do that in a public forum. It's a private Facebook group, but they're not going to share details. And I said to every one of my doubters, watch me. And I think when you believe in something, you go after it and you make it happen. But there are failures along the way. My first business venture didn't work out. I lost a ton of money and had to pivot. But that pivot led me to where I am today, to be able to write a book and get it published.
That's incredible.
I love when people underestimate me.
Yeah.
I'm actually not
It's
even...
actually like a rocket fuel.
Yes. I'm not even 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
So when they look at me, they think, oh my gosh, and I love when people underestimate me or say I can't do something, because that gives me every bit of motivation to make it happen.
And you have, and you're passing the torch on, and you're helping all these families feel like, yes, we know exactly what we have to do. I want my audience to follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Sara Harberson, or on my Facebook page, Sara Harberson. And if you want to be a member of Application Nation, very easy to sign up, and it is available for families of all income levels, which is what we want. We want equity and equality in this admissions process.
Yes, and definitely make the investment to buy her book, Soundbite. I love it. I'm so glad I have a signed copy, and it's something that I can't wait to read with my kids when they're ready. Thank you, Sara, for joining me today. It was a joy.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of That's Total Mom Sense. You can listen to the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for That's Total Mom Sense. You can learn more about my guests by logging on to www.thatstotalmomsense.com. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active on social media. My handle is @KanikaChadda-Gupta. And if you have ideas for show topics or guests you can't wait to have on the show, write to me at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. And lastly, please rate, review, and subscribe to That's Total Mom Sense if you haven't already. Thanks for being in my tribe.